and would have extended our sympathies to his children and family. Last week, I would have attended a funeral in St. Kitts for Agnes Fleming. She would have been the mother of Miss Naveen Fleming, an attorney here in Anguilla. And we were able to be present. In fact, she would have been a family member of my own as well. And so we want to extend the condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of Naveen's mom, Agnes Fleming. We also would have been informed of a shooting incident yesterday afternoon in Stony Ground, and that shooting incident would have resulted in the loss of life of a young person. We are awaiting the report from the police that the next of kin have been informed, and so we are unable at this time to release a name through this medium. But for all of those persons that I would have mentioned and other persons who would have lost loved ones in recent times, or even those who have loved ones who are hospitalized and ill, we want to extend our condolences to those persons who have lost those loved ones, and we wish a full recovery for those persons who are ill. The Honorable Callaghan Connor would have in his prayer made mention of Jamaica, Haiti, and in general the Northern Caribbean. And as we sit here, we are all thinking about Hurricane Melissa. We are tracking its progress and its passage over Jamaica at this point in time. We all know persons, we all have friends, family, loved ones who may be in Jamaica at this time, may be in Haiti. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to those persons. We are praying for our brothers and sisters for the in relation to the passage of Hurricane Melissa, and we wish them the very best at this time. We were also able to bring our students home. There were about 6 students who were in Jamaica studying, and we were able to bring them back to Anguilla. Yesterday, they have arrived back on. And so we want to especially thank the department, the public admin department, and in particular the PS of Public Administration and her members of staff for working assiduously to be able to bring our children back home. Last week, I would have attended the pre-joint ministerial conference in BVI, and that conference would have been a meeting of our Caribbean leaders of the overseas territories, and it would have been in relation to preparation for attending the joint ministerial conference, which will take place in the UK during the last week of November of this year. There were a number of topics that were discussed, particularly as it relates to constitutional reform as well, beneficial ownership, and a number of other issues that impact us collectively as overseas territories. I was also able to participate in Diplomatic Week, which was held by the BVI, and I will participate as a panelist along with Premier Whitley in relation to discussions on international diplomacy. I want to take the opportunity to thank BVI, to thank Premier Whitley and his staff and all the members of his team for accommodating our presence in BVI at that time. Many of you may have seen the increase in government assistance, an announcement that was put forward. And again, we want to thank the Department of Public Administration for their hard work in ensuring that we were able to present 40% increase generally for our students who are away on scholarships or on their living expenses for those students who are away on government scholarship and government support. That increase represents the first increase since 2008, and we're very pleased to have been able to ensure that our children are able, now students studying abroad, are able to benefit from this increase in financial assistance, and this goes towards the living expenses. It also shows that this administration places as a priority education and the educating of our people. We want to, at this point, wish all of our students every success as they continue with their studies. This morning, we would have engaged in capital budget discussions. As many of you know, we are currently preparing for budget presentations, a budget debate, and passage of the budget in the House of Assembly. And in order to do so, there's a lot of work that takes place behind the scenes. I want to, at this time, extend my thanks to the Ministry of Finance team for all of their hard work in bringing this forward. The capital budget represents those capital projects that the government of Anguilla will be embarking upon for the year 2026. And so you will hear more about it as we move forward. This evening, there will be a public consultation on the Draft Police and Criminal Evidence Act, the bill, and the bail bill. The Police and Criminal Evidence Act is known as PACE, and it is a draft bill that would have been prepared. The consultations are taking place this evening at Morris Vanderpool Primary School, tomorrow evening at Alwyn Allison Primary School, and on Wednesday at the Teachers Resource Center. The purpose of the bill as presented would be to establish clear procedures in terms of police powers in relation to arrest, detention, questioning, search, and also in relation to the evidence that must be brought before the court. And the bail bill is to provide a modern framework to refusing bail, balancing the presumption of liberty with the need to ensure the administration of justice. I would have received a number of questions and concerns from particularly members of the bar. And I've encouraged all persons, and I'll continue to encourage all persons to come out to these presentations to listen to the contents of the bill. Many of us have criticized the way in which the arrest, detention, investigations, and convictions have taken place in recent times. And I believe that there's a general sentiment that persons want to see something done in relation to our gun crime and violence that's happening in our country. And part of that is by legislative amendments. At the same time, we want to ensure that any legislation passed is fit and proper for Anguilla and does not violate the people's constitutional rights. And so in that respect, it is important, in fact, it is critical that we all take a copy of the bill, we find it where it's online, and we go through it. And I'm especially appealing to the members of the bar to take the opportunity to review it and to provide suggestions, comments, and a way forward in terms of the provisions that are set out in the bill. This is critical for us, not only for the PACE bill, but also for the bail bill. And I will ask once again that you pay particular attention. You come out to the meetings. If you cannot come out to the meetings this week, the consultations, then you listen as much as possible and be able to provide your views. And it's only when we come together as a people that we'll be able to move forward. And you may see in front of me as I close out, we have House of Assembly tomorrow. And there are a number of questions that were presented by the member for District 5. And we will be at the House beginning at 10 a.m. to be able to address those questions. You may see in front of me a basketball, and it has my, sorry. I'm looking at it and calling it basketball. A football. I do know the difference between a football and a basketball. It's a football with my name on it, and this is actually works done by KJ's Crazy Craft, Kijan Gums, and he is a student attending the the Alwyn Allison Primary School. I want to say West End, but that's not the right name. The Alwyn Allison Primary School. And this would have been as a result of his business that was presented at the Kids Entrepreneurship Program, which took place on the 17th of October. Unfortunately, I was not able to be present. I was present at the Morris Vanterpool Primary School Kid Entrepreneurship Fair, as well as the Aurelia Kelly Primary School Kids Entrepreneurship Fair, but I wasn't able to attend this one in West End. And so the football was delivered to me, and just recently, and I wanted to showcase it because I'm so proud of the artwork that took place. And I want to encourage not just KJ, Kajan Gums, but all of the children at Aurelia Kelly Primary School, at Alwyn Allison Primary School, Morris Vanterpool Primary School, and the other primary schools who will be showcasing their kid entrepreneurship fairs next year. So continue to encourage them because it is important. It leads to the idea of being able to own your own business, accounting, being able to manage your own accounts. It leads to the vision that we all have of our children succeeding and allowing us to think outside the box and come up with business ideas. And so it's a wonderful opportunity. I encourage all of our children to participate. And well done to each of you who have already participated at the 3 primary schools and look forward to attendance at the other primary schools when they hold their kid entrepreneurship fairs. At this point, I will stop here and ask if any members of the press have any questions in relation to my presentation.
Good afternoon, Lloyd Gums from Lloyd's Live. Madam Premier, in reference to the hurricane in Jamaica, if asked, what type of assistance can Anguilla offer to Jamaica? And if push, where will Anguilla be able to house any person from Jamaica?
So the assistance is something that we're actively looking at. It's the reason in part why we're paying keen attention to what's happening. We have a large Jamaican diaspora here in Anguilla, and we know many of them are concerned for their family, friends, and loved ones who are in Jamaica. And so we're paying keen attention. In terms of the type of assistance, we know that it was headed primarily as a category 5. It may be downgraded to a 4, but the effect will ultimately be the same in terms of the impact. And so we would have to determine in the immediate aftermath what type of assistance we can provide and be able to do so in short order. I know that when we typically have disasters, our people, whether it's the diaspora from a particular country, and even the people of Anguilla in general would provide different things in terms of clothes and food and stuff like that for them to be shipped to Jamaica. And so I'm certain that that will be one of the key things that we'll be doing. And in relation to other ways in which we can assist, we'll be paying keen attention as to what's needed in the aftermath.
Good afternoon, Niamke Brooks from Radio Anguilla. In relation to the budget, what date will it be presented?
So we don't have a fixed date as yet. We're looking in November. Certainly before the end of November, I believe, in the 3rd week of November. But we'll confirm that once we are able to take the budget to Executive Council for approval and then passage. But you will certainly hear of the dates for the debates in the House.
In relation to the JMC, was there any discussion on the increasing U.S. military presence in the region? How will the overseas territories stand with the rest of the region in advocating for the Caribbean to remain a zone of peace?
Yes. So we had general discussions in relation to that. It did not form part of the official agenda because That type of discussion is in relation to how we as overseas territories, as leaders in the region, view what is taking place and how we intend to give our support. But in terms of the JMC, the Joint Ministerial Conference, is really the focus. The focus is really on the relationship between the overseas territories and the UK government, and the synergies that we want to explore, the partnerships, and what we want from the UK government and what the UK government wants from us in return, and how we're able to come to some sort of middle ground for all of us.
The governor's office sort of posted about a recent visit from the deputy director of the overseas territories, and says that you would have had conversations with him. Can you share anything about those conversations?
Yes, certainly. And so this was an introductory meeting with the deputy director, and it was a quite a good meeting. I would have spoken to him about a number of things that concern Anguilla and certainly this administration. We are aware, and I would have thanked him for the monies that we've given towards the development of our water infrastructure. And the UK has also recently committed to another £500,000. And now we know that an overhaul of the water system is about $50 million. And so we are happy for monies that have been sent and been pledged to Anguilla so that we can start the hard task of reworking our infrastructure in relation to water across the island. It's one of the key concerns for us, and the minister has been working hard in relation to this. We also would have discussed the beneficial ownership register, which is an important factor for the UK government, and the fact that we are working towards it. We are also looking at what the other overseas territories are doing. That the beneficial register discussion did also take place at the pre-JMC as well. And just a number of other factors that we're looking at in anticipation of our discussions in the UK in November.
James Harrigan from the Anguilla newspaper. You spoke about the water situation, the water being revamped, infrastructure being revamped. Can you safely predict or give a ballpark schedule as to when the relief of water?
So the Minister of Economic Development, Honorable Kyle Hodge,
Okay.
is also the Minister for Water, and so he will provide a full update in relation to that and answer your question.
Okay. Another question, I know that this is the ongoing question, an ongoing question in our conferences. The Director of Social Security, can you give us an update on that?
Yes, so I can share with you that there is a draft of this, an updated Social Security Act, a draft to update the Social Security Act to address the appointment and how the director is appointed. That is currently being drafted, and we expect that it will be finalized in short order. The Social Security Board, primarily through the chair of the Social Security Board and the other members of the board, are responsible for moving forward with the selection and appointment of a new director for Social Security. I can tell you that there's work going on behind the scenes from the board level, but in terms of the re-advertisement, that has not taken place as yet. The final draft for the Social Security Act, in terms of the amendment of that section, will impact the makeup of the interview committee as well.
So do we expect that to happen anytime soon?
It's a matter that I will have to raise with the Director of Social Security, and I can report back at the next press conference.
Okay. There is a vehicle that the former Director of Social Security used, a white Honda Clarity hybrid. It's been parked under the steps of Social Security for a long time. I guess it's since he demitted office, it's been there. Any plans as to when that vehicle will be removed or taken care of, or is it there for the next director to use or whatever?
Yeah, so the role of the minister as the Minister of Social Security is to appoint the board. The reference to the use of a vehicle and what will happen to the vehicle is under the remit of the board. So I can't tell you, and I certainly wouldn't want to be in a position that I would be directing the board as to what should happen with a vehicle that is owned by the Social Security and used by the director. So I do not have any first-hand information on that.
Because I mean, as far as vehicles go, it's a very expensive vehicle. That's why you think it is.
Yeah.
And the
But
elements.
sorry, Mr. Harrigan, I can't tell you if it's being used, if it's being
No,
run,
it was
if
never
it's being,
used. Apparently was never used since it was left, since limited office.
yeah, so I can't tell you about that because that's not under the minister's remit in terms of the operations of a organization's vehicle.
Okay, I know that the Minister of Health is not here, but I want to ask this question. I don't know if anybody can answer it. Oh, the Minister of Health is here. I was referring to Mr. McNeil Rogers.
So if the other members will be speaking,
Okay.
giving presentations. If you want to wait until
Yes, okay.
yes, yeah.
I'll do that.
Unless there are any other questions in relation to my presentation. Oh, thank you for that. I'm sorry to hear he's unwell and wish him a speedy recovery. Are there any other questions for me in terms of the presentation I've made or otherwise? Oh.
Good afternoon. Sazam Hall of Class FM. The last time we were here, you spoke about constitutional reform and you want to make some amendments to the Constitution. I think you said a commission was put in place to oversee the changes in that document. How that has been proceeding thus far?
Thank you for that. It's just to clarify, it is an overhaul, a new constitution that we are preparing for the people of Anguilla. We're not making an amendment to the 1982 constitution. So it's a new constitution. As many persons know, Anguilla is the only overseas territory that has the oldest constitution. And so we are embarking on wholesale constitutional reform. The committee has been established. They have met and they are working through the information that they have. So they will have been working not only with information that they have had from before, because remember, coming out of the 2015 Constitutional Committee, there was a draft constitution that had been prepared. We would have had at the time persons that would have come out of the UK representatives, and we would have started discussions in terms of that draft constitution. It has been 5 years since, and so the Constitutional Committee is now revisiting all of that work that has been done, but also looking at ways in which we can move forward with even more progressive provisions in our Constitution to cater for where we are today and where we want to go as a people. So the work they are meeting.
My question to that, right, is when that constitution is finished and finalized, what sort of say would the British have in regards to that constitution?
So the British would ultimately have to approve the provisions of the Constitution. So for instance, if we wanted to remove any authority of the governor from having any say in Anguilla, for instance, that's something that I doubt that the British would approve, meaning that unless we go independent, we won't be able to eradicate the role of the governor, who is the representative of the UK in Anguilla. So I'm just giving you an example that there would be, we can have our draft constitution, and within the context of wanting to move forward and progress, and where the UK government also recognizes that we as a people strive for greater self-internal determination. At the end of the day, we have to be still in a position where we are working along with the UK government to be able to get the best that we can in our constitution for the people of Anguilla as a British overseas territory.
And let us go on the assumption that they do not approve.
Well, no, but you can't say that because there's so many provisions in the Constitution. You can't say that they won't approve the Constitution. There may be certain provisions that they may push back on. So, for instance, as I mentioned, given the example of the removing the governor entirely from having anything to do with Anguilla, that's certainly one thing that they would not approve of. And then we'd have to go back to the table and say, well, okay, what is it that you want to see? They will provide what they want to see in terms of having ultimately the ability to determine what happens in the country. So, for instance, we know that very fresh in their minds, they have certain issues in terms of, for instance, in the case of TCI, in 2013, they would have taken over the TCI in terms of suspending the Constitution. It has since been that's no longer the case, but I would imagine that on some level, they would want to have that ability built into the Constitution for them to have ultimate say at the end of the day in relation to that. But that again comes with a conversation. It simply ought not to happen by being imposed by order in council or otherwise, but through a discussion with the people of the country.
So if they disapprove of certain things, right, that you vehemently want to be approved, what steps are you prepared to take as the Premier of Anguilla if they disapprove of those decisions that you want to make?
Yeah, well, you're asking a lot of hypotheticals that I don't think that I'm in a position to answer right now. At the end of the day, it just depends on what it is. If it is that it depends on what the issues are, and you come to it, it's a negotiated stance that you take. And so ultimately, if it is that there's a position that's a hard line, that the people of Anguilla insist, no, this has to be the case, then I have to be guided by the people at the end of the day. But I would not want to embark on a hypothetical at the very beginning of a constitutional process where we haven't even seen a draft constitution and they've recently had meetings.
You see, the reason why I asked that question, right, is, I mean, from time to time, you would have heard that some people say that Anguilla should be independent, that we should not depend on the British, that we should not take instructions from the British. So I just asked the question if you are prepared to go towards the people. If there are certain things that the British disapprove in this constitution, if you are prepared to go to the people for them to make that final decision for Anguilla to move forward.
Yeah, so you should be aware that once the draft constitution is prepared, it will go to public consultation. So the people will have the opportunity to weigh in at that point in time in terms of what their position is in relation to certain things. If there are hard and fast positions that the people of Anguilla have that the UK do not agree with, then I'm obliged to come back to the people and advise the people and inform the people that this is a position and obtain a position from the people before I continue to engage with the UK. And that is the way it's supposed to be if it is that we are having a consultative process. And because ultimately the Constitution impacts every one of us in Anguilla, and so we have to ensure that the provisions are there are fit and proper and work for us as a people.
Okay, my final question is, right, let's assume Anguilla wants to secede from the British. What percentage of the population must vote yes for Anguilla to leave?
So under the I can't even say under the proposed constitution. The draft constitution that is being prepared will have to make a determination, but even in the absence of that, if it is that what you're asking for is a referendum, a referendum for the people of Anguilla to determine whether it is that they want to go independent now or at some point in the future. I can't specifically recall under the existing constitution if there's a provision, whether it's 75%, whether it's 50%, whether it's 70%. I can't specifically recall at this point in time. But there would have to be certain things that are put in place. If it is that we say, okay, we're going to embark on this discussion, we want to take it to a referendum, the people have to be informed, they have to be advised, they have to be educated as to the pros and cons of either approach, and ultimately we go from there.
My last question is, what is the national debt of Anguilla?
So I will have reported the national debt, I believe, in August, either August or September. I do not have an update. I can provide the update for you. But as I think if you looked at it, you would have seen we provided from January through September. And it has come down by an equal amount practically every time because there are stage payments that are made continuously. And so if I'll have to go back to see what it was in August or September when I made the last statement, and it'll be about some amount less. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. I want to ask a question with regards to the governor in particular. Hello? In regards to the governor, you would have known that she responded to a letter from the former premier or leader of the opposition regarding the shame on of the Social Security Investment Committee. And she said that she doesn't have the say in appointing the chairman. All right. So she did mention that she would endeavor to have a discussion or advice meeting with you pertaining a committee, maybe a vetting committee to the extent, to assess the chairman's position, not particularly this chairman, but any other chairman. Did she meet with you, or did she discuss those situations with you? And what are your views on it?
Sorry, just to answer the previous question, every 2 months the national debt is decreased by about $20 million. And as at, I'll find what the last month is, but the copy I have here will have said that in May the debt was 395, but I can look for the updated through September, but it's about 20 million every 2 months. Okay, all right, thank you. So yes, to answer your question, the governor did speak with me. The letter will have been brought to my attention. In fact, I was copied on it when it went to the governor. You haven't asked my view. I don't know if you want my view.
Yes, I did ask your view. What's your view on the?
No, you asked me my view in terms of what the governor would have indicated. But
Yeah,
my
and
view.
what's your view on it?
Yeah, my
generally?
view in terms of the entire thing is that it is political. That it has no bearings on the issues presently. That the gentleman who the complaint was made against is in good standing. There's no question in relation to that. And it's so interesting that this is the same gentleman that just the election before were lauded by the opposition. And today, the same gentleman is now being castigated. So there is no bearing on anything whatsoever. The gentleman is the chairman of a committee under the Social Security Board. So he's the chair of a committee, and ultimately in terms of the investment committee, any decision in terms of investments, etc., are routed through the board itself. So there is no concern in terms of any financial issues that may be at stake, etc. And furthermore, there's no bearing in terms of his ability to be able to be the chair of that committee. The governor did speak with me, and it's important to note that what the governor suggested that she would raise with me was as a result of a suggestion made by the leader of the opposition to put measures in place in terms of assessing the ability of persons to sit in certain positions when it has financial obligations or financial duties. This is something that now that the leader of the opposition is in opposition, he is now raising, yet for the 5 years that he was Premier of Anguilla and Minister of Finance, he never once made such a suggestion. And if we're talking about being fit and proper and ensuring that there is accountability and transparency, one would have thought that while he sat in the position as Premier of Anguilla and Minister of Finance, that he would have made those changes to the statutory bodies or make a general requirement for a due diligence exercise to be conducted. Be that as it may, now that he is in opposition, he's raised it in relation to a particular person who has been outspoken on issues impacting the people of Anguilla, the government of Anguilla, and certainly the opposition. And in speaking with the governor, I have no difficulty in terms of an assessment being done, of a fit and proper assessment for those areas, those persons who sit in positions of fiduciary duties. But how that's done, that's still to be worked out and to be discussed. The governor did suggest that it be done through the financial FIU, right, through the FIU. That is a conversation I indicated to the governor that I would have to revert to the other members in terms of how it's done and revert back.
Okay, let's just, for argument's sake, let's just put a shoe on another foot, so to speak. What if what if this administration was not in office and it was still the APM, just let's draw illustration, example, and that had happened, would you be questioning it, or would you have questioned the
the
legitimacy of it?
The appointment of the general, well, we questioned
Yes.
while the leader of the opposition was premier of Anguilla, was the incident that took place at a restaurant where you had not just one member of government, an elected member of government, but a number of elected members of government behaving in a manner that was not conducive for the promotion of stability, for the promotion of good governance in our country. That issue was raised. I would have personally written to the governor. I would have advised that this incident was a violation of certain rules, the rules of the House of Assembly, as well as the rules of Executive Council. And we see that under the leader of the opposition, then Premier, nothing came of that as well. So it is actually laughable that you now have the leader of the opposition in opposition and making statements that when he was in a position as leader of government business, he failed to take actions in certain regards. Go ahead.
Madam Premier, who is charged with the responsibility of making the appointment for the chairman of Social Security?
I am.
You are. And they take directives from you alone?
No. Once the chairman is appointed and the board members are appointed, the board controls the management of the social. When I say management, I don't mean the day-to-day affairs because there is a manager, but the board oversees the management of the Social Security Board,
But who-
not the minister.
But who makes that appointment, though? Who's charged with making that appointment?
I said myself.
Or yourself?
Yes.
What role the governor plays in all of that?
The governor does not play a role under the Social Security Act in terms of the appointment of chairperson or board members. The governor plays a role under the existing act as to the appointment of the director of Social Security. And once the appointment is made, then the director of Social Security is guided by the Minister of Social Security. That is the aspect of the Social Security Act that we're in the process of amending.
Because I think I heard you use the phrase prim and proper, right? Are there a set of elements which guides the appointment? Because
No,
prim and proper could be a subjective thing. It could be subjective. Someone could think something is prim and proper, and then
Yes.
someone else might think it is not prim and proper. So, is there a set of elements which guides?
yeah,
that
there,
decision.
there are general guidelines for fit and proper, but we're talking about two different things. You asked about the chairperson and the board for Social Security. The person who is appointed, who is the issue that we're speaking about, is the chairperson of a subcommittee or a committee called the Investment Committee. So he is not the chairperson of the Social Security Board. He is the chairperson of a committee under the Social Security Board.
Okay. Understand.
Unless there are any other questions, I'd like to turn it over to the Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon to the press. Good afternoon to the people of Anguilla. I want to start by giving a quick update again on the grants policy. So the entire month of September, the Ministry of Economic Development would have been receiving applications for a 10,000 AC dollar grant. At the end of September, we would have received 38 applications at the end of September. And for the entire month of October, the committee that was put in place to manage this scheme, they have been reviewing all 38 grants. So they have a matrix, they have a way of scoring, and that process is right now ongoing. I'm pushing on them to wrap that up by the end of this week, so that as of next week, we can award the 10 successful businesses that would have scored the highest on the matrix. Once those 10 successful applicants are awarded, then it goes on to Treasury for disbursement. So we're looking at the next week or two to be able to have those well-needed funds in the hands of 10 small businesses that I'm sure will do really good, with this money right now. Also, I would have partake in a webinar last week, Wednesday. So even though I was away on a conference, I would have been I participated in a webinar. It's an investment webinar that provided opportunities for Anguilla and Bermuda and Montserrat to be able to present what investment opportunities are available in Anguilla. This was a webinar that was put on by British Expertise International. So myself and Mr. Kari Goddard, who is the Director of Trade, Investment and Commerce, we would have presented and we would have showcased Anguilla in front of investors from the UK and around the world. Over 100 plus investors would have registered for this webinar, and we had a total of 82 dialed in. So we would have provided and showcased an investment portfolio that we would have developed in the Ministry of Economic Development, and that portfolio was presented by Mr. Goddard, and we stayed online for about an hour and a half, where we fielded questions and answered the questions that were asked. So this is all part of our proactive approach as it pertains to seeking foreign direct investment. We're not gonna just sit around and wait for an investor to discover Anguilla. That is all well and good because it has been done like that in the past, whether through tourism ministry promoting Anguilla, whether through the various ads throughout the world. Those things are good, but we are looking beyond that, and we are taking control and looking for various other platforms where we can showcase Anguilla, what investment opportunities are available for foreign direct investment. So part of our portfolio would have displayed opportunities in tourism, whether it's more hotel projects, maybe it could be another marina project, it can be investment in a special economic zone as it relates to opening tech companies. Tech companies are fintech companies, whether it can be education tourism, and that could come in the likes of medical schools, that could come in the likes of nursing schools, veterinary schools, marine biology schools. So we are updating our investment portfolio that we can take across the world. And these are all things that will form part of that. And what will also come out of this is the development of an investment platform, an investment website. For instance, Anguilla Invest. You can play on the word AI, Anguilla Invest. We can do Invest Anguilla. So we are looking at different portals that we can have a platform that shows the world, what Anguilla has to offer as it relates to investment. So I think it was a successful webinar because shortly after, we would have received 2 emails from two interested persons who were participating, and those emails are now left up for us to follow up on. So we want to get the word out as much as possible and as far as possible. So that's it for that. I want to give an update on the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association conference that I recently attended in Belize. I attended this conference in Belize last week, for the entire week, and attending with me were Melissa Mead, Permanent Assistant Secretary, and Ms. Teleka Mussington. She is the Research and Development Officer in the Renewable Energy Unit that is housed at MICU currently. She's a trained engineer Hence why, we wanted to take a technical person with us. The engineer at the water department, for personal reasons, was not able to attend the conference. This is a conference that Anguilla used to attend years ago, but for some reason we would have fallen off over the years, and we were not able to build the relationships that's needed, especially when you're running a utility. I must put this one in here. It's a conference that is attended by Mr. Romel Hughes on an annual basis. So even though he would have retired from the public service years ago, the saying was, once you're part of the water family, you're always going to be a part of it. And I can truly see that it is a family of engineers, a family of water CEOs and ministers once they are operating in government. I must also note that Mr. Hughes, Romel Hughes, is well respected throughout the region. So I would have pulled him in to 2 of the ministerial meetings, and I was happy to have him there as someone who is well versed, well knowledgeable in water, and just well respected. He's also sought after because in the region, several countries are having issues with their infrastructure, and with his knowledge and expertise, I saw him on the side having conversations. So I'm going to monitor that. So we would have signed a declaration. We had 5 other countries that were present. So it were Antigua, BVI, Belize, St. Kitts, and St. Vincent. And our declaration focused on tackling non-revenue water, NRW. Other countries are having some significant challenges, but there are some success stories. And, this is perhaps one of the things you gain from these conferences, the success stories in the various countries, best practices, how you can learn from them, even how you can rely on the exchange of staff to be able to assist each other. So countries like the Bahamas, they would have reduced their non-revenue water by 40%. And they would have done it through performance-based contracts and smart metering. Smart metering is something that we are looking to roll out next year, early next year, and I'll get into some more details a little bit later on that. Belize, they would have reduced their non-revenue water from 50% to 20%. And that is because they would have created an entire unit just dedicated to looking at non-revenue water. And we know for us, our non-revenue water is 80%. And, the question is, do we have a big enough unit to be able to tackle this problem aggressively? No, we don't. We only have one, and then somebody else that assists. So we only have 1 or 2 persons that goes out and check for non-revenue water, that goes out and do leak detection, and how often does it happen? So we are exploring different ways and means of aggressively reducing the non-revenue water. And once we start trenching, once we start digging and repiping the entire system, that will tremendously decrease our NRW. So the declaration would have us all commit to reducing our non-revenue water. Countries with non-revenue water of 30% or lower committed to a further 5% reduction. Countries with non-revenue water of 31% or higher, in that category Anguilla falls in, we committed to reducing our non-revenue water by 10% over the next 5 years. And I'm sure that is more than achievable because of the plans that we have to repipe the different networks. And I'll go into the different districts, the different zones that we have planned for early next year. We also looked at, we also committed to a reduction in the existing population not served by water by 5% within the next 5-year period. So this is new customers. This is ensuring that we have new customers coming on board. And it's important to have commitments, because commitments forces you to look at your overall vision. It forces you to look at your work plan, to update your work plan to make it suitable as an island country, as a region. We also looked at emerging tools during the exhibition period, because what this conference brought together, it was not just ministers of water utilities. It included exhibitors of material, exhibitors of pipe, tanks, meters, various technologies. It featured a delegation from the World Bank, the International Development Bank. It included other groups like CDB. So it was three different parties at the same table. We also spent some time discussing knowledge and capacity building, where we commit to training the various staff at the various water departments. For most other countries, they have water authorities. We once had a water authority, but the previous administration felt it was necessary to bring water back under a department. But throughout the region, the water authority is something that exists, and it makes it a lot easier when you have an authority to now pool procurement, to now share resources as it relates to training. There was a presentation by JICA. JICA is Japan International Cooperation Agency, and they are offering some free training for engineers, for other workers that work with the system, and that is coming up in St. Lucia. So we are looking to see how many technical people we can have afforded that training seminar. And it is this capacity building seminar in St. Lucia is going to be focused primarily on non-revenue water reduction. So I'm sure we'll be able to find 1 or 2 persons from the department that can benefit from training like this. Another central theme that was discussed was utility to utility cooperation across the region. Similarly to how Anglic and you would have whatever the other electricity companies be in the region. There's the bigger group called Kerelec. I guess it's an association of energy companies. So we are looking to formalize through a regional agreement utility to utility cooperation. It exists, but not in a formal manner, because when we had an issue with a valve some months ago, that was utility to utility cooperation. So we continue to do it informally. And may I also add, it was great to meet the Minister of Antigua, because Antigua would have been contacted when we had an issue recently with the valve, and they did not hesitate to send a valve. They didn't even require money up front. They would have sent the valve, and we would have paid later. So I'm always thankful for the connections, and Mr. Romel Hughes, because of his connections in the past, because of him attending these conferences and being a part of the water family, would have been able to make a phone call. So the conference was beneficial in many ways. I now have the contact information for all the relevant ministers, all the relevant CEOs of water, and the engineers of these authorities. I would have had a one-on-one meeting with the president of QUIC, and QUIC is the Caribbean Water Utilities Insurance Company, and it's a very interesting dynamic taking place there. Quick is an insurance company offering an insurance model that provides fast liquidity within 24 days after extreme weather events like hurricanes and heavy rainfall, which includes thunder and lightning. And, we would have experienced some really, really bad weather recently. And if we were a part of Quick, because the lightning 2 weeks ago would have destroyed an antenna at Crocus Hill, and it would have shut off the communication between the well field in the valley and the facility at Crocus Hill. And since then, that facility has been down. We're only producing water right now from 7Cs. So our brackish plant is currently offline completely. And hence, we're having issues right now distributing water throughout Anguilla. So this is a direct instance. Where I got to start back from? Hang on. New link?